the most interesting meeting which we had yesterday was interaction with the Japanese parliamentarian. And it was heartening to note that the parliamentarian were looking towards India. Most of them had visited India at some point of time. They were talking about investment in India, not just government to government, not just the Japan government investing into India, but also the Japanese corporates, the private sector investing in India. When we talk to them about long-term investment in the infrastructure, such as NIIF, they said that recently they have amended the regulation around the Japanese Investment Infrastructure Fund, and their charter has been amended to allow them to invest in the international market, which would mean that they can now invest in the Indian NIIF and similar funds. So there is definitely very positive momentum between Japan and India. And that's my takeaway so far.
While you did mention that now the Japanese funds will be allowed to invest in NIIF, but if you look at the infrastructure in Japan, that's leaps and bounds ahead as compared to India. How do you think Japan can really aid the infrastructure growth story in India, and how soon can we actually things taking shape on ground?
Very interesting question. In fact, this point also came up in our interaction with the parliamentarian. And one of the things which they pointed out, that if you look at Delhi Metro, which was supported by Japan significantly, and they said we have not only exported Delhi Metro, but also the way the metro runs and is absolutely clean. So we have also exported the cleanliness along with it. So Japan's involvement in Indian infrastructure is quite significant. Not just Delhi Metro, but Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor. Then now the latest, the bullet train, the high-speed train corridor. So they're quite involved in the Indian infrastructure. It's also matches with the Japanese skills and our needs. We need long-term financing, we need infrastructure, we need investment. Japan has surplus capital, they are looking for return. They are looking for long-term investment outside Japan for the growth, and therefore I think that clearly there is a complementarity between Japan and India.
Right. Has there been any concerns so far from the Japanese investors? Because we know for a fact that regulatory uncertainty, taxation hurdles are something that drive investments away. What sort of a response have you got on the concerns that the Japanese investors really have?
I came to Japan a year and a half ago, soon after this government had come to power. And at that time, the general perception of the Japanese corporate was wait and watch. And these are the concerns which they were raising, the concerns which you talked about, the taxation, the decision making and things like that. This time round, surprisingly, in fact, it was all opportunity. They were all looking forward, looking for some opportunity, looking for actually making investment and moving forward on that. So I guess given the amount of things which government have done, plus the way it has been communicated to outside India, I think these concerns are now no longer really a big concern.
Is there a timeline that probably that you've heard of from the Japanese investors on how soon would they be willing to come into India?
That would depend on the opportunity. That would depend on the specific situation. That would depend on the how many new projects be offered to them, what they have to really look at, both in the private sector as well as in the public sector. But if I can say, the Japanese corporates and the Japanese government is clearly ready to invest in India.
Right. But what were the key asks from the government? Because you see, in the last 2 years that we've seen in the government, a lot has been done. The government has moved on structural reforms. But where from here, what were the key asks of the Japanese investors, of the Japanese government from India?
I think the one thing which really came out and across the different sector, because this delegation as well as the minister had meetings across the different sector, people from the different sectors, is the projects, as which are the projects where they can really invest, what is the viability of those projects and how should they go about investing into those projects, and what is in it for Japan. So can Japanese companies set up manufacturing facilities in India?
Right.
Can they bring in their ecosystem along with it, in the sense that their supplier network, their MSME network, and all of them, can they supply out of Japan? Can it aid to the growth of Japanese companies? I think those are the kind of questions. So they're going into the specifics, looking at specific projects, and now talking about the real investment.
Right. Apart from renewables, which is a very important sector that where Japan can invest in, apart from e-commerce, where they're heavily invested, which are the other sectors that you've identified? Like infrastructure is one, e-commerce is another one. Any other sectors, perhaps?
So it's actually both ways. It's also investment into India, plus they were also talking about Indian companies investing in Japan. So I'll talk about both. So in terms of the sector preference, you are absolutely right that renewable, clearly the power sector was at the top of the mind, power, infrastructure. But I found a lot of interest in the engineering and heavy engineering as well.
Right.
And auto, of course, the Japanese auto companies have been in India.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/etnow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at etnowlive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/etnow.